Good day. How are you? Amazing. Yes, we are here today to talk about patience. I know I said that kind of slow, but it's very important to understand patience. And we're going to dive into this. This is an important topic because this is not an easy skill to ascertain. So why don't you hold that thought, and I'll be right back and we'll dive right into it. Thanks for holding. Okay, so we're going to talk about patience. And I'm laughing because speaking of patience, I don't know if any of you have ever had the pleasure of actually picking up your child or dropping your child to school. And there's a patience there that you need to have a certain degree. Also, depending on where your school is located or what kind of school it is, you may find yourself facing a line of cars. So I'll give you the example. In our old town, I would drop off my son and there was maybe 5 or 6 cars. I would pick up my son, maybe 5 or 6 cars. Here in my new town, I find myself, I have to actually get in the spot of the car line at an hour or so before I even get my son, because there is literally 30 or 40 cars ahead of me. And when I turn to look, there is 2 rows of cars going in either direction outside of the school gate, maybe 30 or 40 cars deep. And it's crazy to think that, but the school is actually bigger. There's more grades here. But the other thing is the dynamic of the town increase. I believe they have an influx. I've overheard from 85 to 90% in the last 3 months. So there's so many new people. So as I'm turning into going to get my son, all of a sudden this car comes racing by. And I'll tell you, the sheriff is funny because the sheriff has himself positioned in a specific way that if you speed on this street, your fine doubles, and if he catches you, but there's a thing of having patience. So either, I always had this saying that if you want to be somewhere on time, you got to leave 15 minutes early than planned. Why? Whenever you want to be anywhere, you need to have control of your time management. If you find yourself racing or trying to get somewhere, you can never, ever get anywhere exactly at that point, because, if there's traffic, if you're taking the train, even when you go to an appointment, if your appointment's at 1 o'clock, you want to be there at 12:50, for example. Give yourself the room for patience, the room for making up the time. Because if you get to the destination exactly, let's say 1 o'clock, by the time you open the door, walk in, introduce yourself, and do all that, now it's 1:05. So now you're late, right? So keeping this in mind will kind of help you along the way of your time management. Now, with that said, there has been many of instances where I've had to test my patience. In the airport, if a plane was canceled, we found ourselves in that scenario last week. Our plane happened to be canceled. We got stuck where we were. We had to get a hotel, leave the next day. But in all of that said, in every situation, I remember just standing in one spot online, and I was on that spot for 2 hours. And so were my children, and we didn't complain or anything. And the reason why, and my husband also, the reason why is because we have founded patience within ourselves. So when we go places, we already have the mindset, okay, the expectation is already, we'll have to be patient. Guys, there will be a line. Please make sure you have earphones, a device, a reading material, something to keep your mind busy, or, something to get your mind off of being online waiting. Not a lot of people have that, and since my children were very small, I have instilled with them the idea of being patient. Okay, we have to go to here, we got to do this, we got to do that, I'm going to need your cooperations and patience. And the other things that we add in is sometimes they have a tablet, a phone, a device, a comic book, something to take that away, but I consider those stepping stones. When you really need to test your patience, it's actually just sitting there without any devices. And what I try to do is find a meditation. Maybe I had a terrible dream last night, or I have some issues that I got to work out. Well, this is the perfect opportunity for me to work out that while I'm online. Can you understand that? For example, let's say I got to do the laundry. So while I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, okay, when I get home, I'm going to have to sort through the clothes, pull out this, make sure I have this. Do the boys need their uniforms washed separately? Oh, I might have some dish rags from the kitchen. I'll get that. Okay, boom. Clarified it. Because sometimes we have these knots of ideas and information that is completely tangled in our thoughts. So then by the time we get home, we're like, oh my God, I'm bombarded with everything I have to get done. Work it out in your time that you are waiting. That is where you can meditate on your patience, not test your patience. There are scenarios that will test your patience, like the car line that happens. Now, the parent that raced ahead of me and the car in front of me when I went to go get my son, they probably are late, running out of time, not sure if they're going to get here, want to beat everybody. Here's the thing. The gate to get the kids won't open until a specific time. So it doesn't really matter where you are on the line. Even if you're first, you're going to have to wait. So if you're getting your kid, again, example, 1 o'clock, and you're there to 12 o'clock, you're still sitting for an hour until that gate opens. And so it's kind of the mindset of, well, what's the right timing? And it's hard, and I feel for different people who have different schedules, because there's some parents that are on the back of that line. Now, you may think, well, that's messed up if I'm on the back of the line, but here's another point of view. Sometimes when you're on the front of the line, you have the advantage. When you're in the middle, you don't. When you're in the middle, you're stuck in a situation because you can't get off the line. There's no exit. When you're at the back of the line and you're literally the last car to enter the back of the line, you may have an advantage, because if the line is moving when you enter the back of the line, well, then it's just a matter of all the cars going through, and then it's your turn to get your child. So what that may mean is, let's say it's a minute a car, there's 30 cars, you may be there 30 to 45 minutes. It would have been the same 30 to 45 minutes had you been the first car and had to wait for the gate to open. And then if you're stuck in the middle, well, now you have both of those time frames added to your time frame, because you need to wait for the first car to get their car, and now you're stuck here in your own time frame. Sometimes when you're the last one, it's like it's just that last car in the end. By the time you get on your line, the line's already moving, you pick up your kid and you're out. So there's different perspectives, okay? So it's not a designated specific point, there's a range. So when you have a range of time, you can utilize that range to your advantage. Now, in the morning when I drop off my son, I like to be the first car. So my son technically does not have to, they will not open the doors and they won't pick up my son. A specific point at 7:55, right? And if I was to wait till 7:30, 7:45, I will not be able to drop off my son until after 8 o'clock. Because the line of cars is just so many cars. This is no way. So I always tell my son, we're going to leave early. We leave exactly at 7 o'clock. We get to the gate exactly at 7:05. It's literally that short of distance from my home. And then I say, hey, let's look through anything we got to talk about. And it also gives us a chance to have one-on-one time, which is kind of crazy because it's in a car. But sometimes he'll ask me questions and we'll talk about different things, or maybe I'll let him look at his Pokemon, and then maybe there's some quick emails I gotta send out. So that's the other thing. Don't wait in vain. Like, I'm not gonna just sit. Sometimes we do. When I'm with my kids, we listen to music and we enjoy the moment, but I'm not just gonna do that. I'm gonna utilize the time for my advantage. Okay, maybe I had to write a quick email, or maybe I had to review something. I'm just sitting parked, right? So I would never ever express to anyone to look at their phone while driving, and I don't. What I'm saying is, in the time that I'm parked, definitely I will catch up on anything it is. Maybe even I had to read an article for an assignment or something I'm doing. Let's get through it. I know I'm going to be here for an hour. Let me get through it. Now, by the time the door opens, the time has passed so fast, I don't even think about it. And then I say, okay, bye. And by the time I get home, so door opens at 7:55. By the time I get home, it's like 8:10, give or take, because, him getting out the car, getting himself ready. I will not push or race him. So that gives me that window. Now, there's no other benefit than to get here early, because if you get here late, you can get stuck here until 8:45, 9 because of all the traffic. So something to kind of keep in mind. Now, this is a lot of conversation and dialogue about timing, but it has a lot to do with patience, because you can work on the level of your stress by understanding what is the pinpoints to your stressors and then managing it. Again, time management. Self-reflection, understanding, right? Remember, I went over these things many times. If we can self-assess, then we can figure out our journey. And then at the end of the journey, we can look back in our self-reflection and say, okay, you know what? These are the things I could have picked up on. I missed these things. And be honest with ourselves. Oh, you know what? I did miss these points, or I did miss these cues in the conversation. And next time I'll be aware of myself. When you're aware of you trespassing on someone's information or them speaking to you and you overstepping, sometimes that helps you. You may have already burnt that bridge because you already tested their patience, but now when you move forward, you know how to work through those things. So, back to patience. Have you ever found yourself in a rushing through the week type of experience? Well, this is kind of interesting, and it happens to a lot of people, and it's actually very funny, but you're gonna have to hold that thought, and I'll be right back. Thank you for taking that break with me. So, should I talk slow? No, I can't do that to you. You know I talk fast. But, welcome back. Now, have you ever experienced this? And I'm going to give it to you right now on the straight. Here we go. You start work Monday morning, and the first thing you do is you're like, okay, give me a second. Let me get my breakfast or my coffee, or give me a moment to get acclimated to this environment. By the time it's the end of the day, then it's Tuesday. Tuesday is here. Maybe it's Taco Tuesday or Tequila Tuesday. Wednesday come, you're like, oh, it's hump day. Here comes Thursday. You're like, yay, it's Friday Junior. And now here's Friday. And now you're like, oh my God, I can't wait for the weekend. Thank God, the weekend's tomorrow. And then now it's Saturday and you're like, oh, I want to do all these things. And then you run out of time, and here it is Sunday afternoon, and you're like, don't mess with me. I got to get everything ready for Monday. And boom, here's Monday again. Think about that for one moment. Now think about that same Monday where you're looking at your watch constantly. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. Now I got to do this. I got to do these reports. I got to do this. Oh, now I got to take my lunch. Now I got to take a break. Now I got to do that. And now it's 5 o'clock. You're like, oh no, I have no more time to get this stuff done. It's like sands of the hourglass, right? So there's two perspectives there. The first perspective is, why are you racing through your week to get to Saturday? You literally just started on Monday, but the emphasis to get through the week was so strong, you raced through the whole week. Hold that thought. Now, the second perspective is, you raced through your whole day that you didn't give yourself enough time to get actual tasks done, and now you're out of time. So here it is, you raced through your time, and now you're out of time. How does this impact patients? This does, okay? I always say, when we're on this earth, we're only given two things, right? We're given birth and death. Maybe three, taxes. But that's it. That's all we're given. That's all we're given in our life. Why would you want to race to the finish line? And think about that thoroughly with your own life. Do you find yourself racing? Why? Oh, well, if the first sentiment is, well, I don't like my job, I don't want to be there. Okay, you have the physical ability to change that. Oh, no, you don't. I don't have the physical ability. I can't change my job. I don't. Stop with the I don'ts. And I'm going to tell you why. A lot of times people will say to me, okay, I'll give you an example. I have a friend and they work as a cashier. And they're like, oh my God, I have no training. I haven't been in school. I don't know this. I don't know that. I'm like, wait a minute. You're talking and telling me a lot of things you don't have and you can't do. But you're not telling me the things that you do have and the things that you want to attain. So how do we change our mindset, right? So if you don't like your environment, I always say a job is a hobby, 100%. I don't care if it's your career. I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut. It's a hobby because it's not who you are, right? Like, I like to dance. I'm not a dancer, right? I just like to dance. These are things that we like to do. We take passion in it, right? But maybe you are a dancer. You're a professional dancer. But you don't do that 100% of your life. Oh, no, you don't know I am very dead. Yeah, okay, whatever. You don't do it. What do you do 100% of your life? 100% of your life, you're you. And you acclimate time and moments of your existence to do certain things you enjoy because you like to do it. The moment something you love in your life becomes a chore, it's no longer a passion. Now, that happens to a lot of people who love sports, and then they get pushed into sports, and then they have this feeling, I resent sports. Think about that. Once you start to feel like, okay, my passion has become my job, is it your job in a positive way that's making you feel great? Or is it your job in a negative way that you don't like it and you hate it? Now, those two things can go either way, right? Multiple ideas I always try to throw at you to make you think. I always like to give you a lot so that you can walk away like, let me think about these things. So if you're somewhere that you hate, and that's why I ask you to make a transformation in your life and think about a change. Now, if you say to me, I don't have those skills, well, you need to transform your ideas of what you think your skills are. So my friend who's a cashier, I was like, wait, it sounds like you work with money. Okay, so you're trusted to work with money. You're responsible handling cash. Are you dealing with people? Oh, you are. So you have customer service face-to-face with clients. Oh, but it's the bodega. Or, oh, but it's, a pharmacy. So what? You are making an impact on someone's life. They come into your store or your location and they have a transaction with you and they trust that their money has been handled correctly. That's trust. That's responsibility. Are you always on time? Well, then you're dedicated. It's how your perspective is. So you can change and transform into what you need to be. Do you enjoy working? I enjoy it, but I want a different atmosphere. Well, then have you thought about maybe working in the bank or working for an administrative agency like a post office or a DMV that maybe you have to do transactions? Think about it. Maybe you don't want to work in a post office, and maybe do you want to work in a movie theater? Do you want to work in an action park? Do you want to work somewhere doing transactions, period? Maybe you want to focus more on customer service, or maybe you want to focus on the management level, or maybe where you are right now, you're ready for the next level. Maybe the next level for you is a supervisor or a manager, or maybe the next level for you is a merchandiser or a merchant. Think about your next steps. Now, if you're brand new and you already hate your job, I always say, give it a minute. Give it a minute. Let your feet get truly saturated. Let it digest, because you got to give yourself time. That's the other part. Sometimes you just start a career and it may not be exactly what you want. So maybe your expectation was off, or maybe the expectation given to you was not exactly what they said it would be. So it could be different parts of that, right? So now we understand why you're racing through your week. I hate my job. Okay. But now, what if you're racing through the week for other reasons? Maybe you're going to go on vacation next week, right? So if you're going on vacation next week, then I would say it's time to prioritize this week on the things you got to do. This is, again, patience. Have patience daily on your lively impacts. So in your workspace, whatever your job is, if you take the time to care about what you do, that also drives your passion to do it better, not sloppy, more organized. Think about it. When you're like the best in your field, then it makes you want to continuously to strive to be better. And then it also creates a competition to either get to your point or to be better than you. And never take competition as a direct impact against your own life. Anybody who is like, wow, I want to be like that, is a compliment. Learn that now. Don't let that test your patience. Like, why is she trying to be like me? How about, wow, I'm flattered that you find the things I do interesting and you want to try them too. Wow. Think about it differently. Because if you're constantly worried about why other people are interested in what you're doing, you're not doing what you need to be doing. Now, again, patience. Having patience with that person and understanding that maybe they're looking at you in a way that they want to aspire to, or they have questions. You know, I always say, like, if you ever post anything on social media, right? This is the funniest thing. I always say, you don't need to like my post. You don't need to comment on my post. It doesn't matter if my post is a TikTok, an Instagram, a Facebook, Snapchat, a Twitter. You don't need to do anything. When I put the same post in a story, this is the funniest thing. I tested this the other day. The other day, I posted random things into random stories on multiple social platforms. And I wanted to see the ratio between, here comes the quantitative research on this, or the analytics on this. I wanted to see the results. So some of my posts had 1,400 to 2,000 views, but 2 likes. That means that the person who was watching it, they watched the whole thing because it was a story. So in order to get through this one, you got to get through the other one without tapping. You can't tap it, but you got to sit through it. The relatable content. So now here they go. They're watching the whole thing all the way to the end. Some people fizzled out. Some people liked the post but didn't like anything else because it was like, I'm just going to give you a like. I'm not watching this whole thing. You know, that's the feeling. So you have to understand that perspective there. Now, if you're getting a monetization on someone viewing your content, that's important criteria that maybe you need to evaluate. What are they watching? Why isn't it transcending into a like, right? Is there patience? There is patience, because it's about evaluating what you're putting out. Is your input the same as your output? Is your output the same as your input? Where is the variable? What do I need to change with myself? So I always say, I don't get paid through likes, and I don't get paid through comments. Some people do. Some people got 6 million. Some people got 1 million on 6 million. They got 1 billion. Some people have that, and I applaud them, and I say congratulations to you. The other thing is, I have a podcast, and you know, if you are trying to, and I get this question all the time, especially in a Facebook group that I'm a part of, they say, how do I monetize? How do I monetize? The thing is, with my platform, I was asked to monetize. If you go to anchor.fm, shout out to Anchor. If you go to anchor.fm, there's a way that they will monetize. They show you how to do it. For mine was picked up, and other platforms now listen, like you can listen to it anywhere because they picked up on it. There was a likability. Yay! That was great for me. Is the monetization on my Facebook gonna pay all the bills? It's not. Did I say Facebook? I meant podcast. Is it gonna? It's not. It's really not. And you know, not to mention, I do also have a monetization on my Facebook. Last month I hit 267,000 views on a couple posts that I did in one of my Facebook sponsored postings that I did. That only made $3. So think about it. It took 267,000 reactions, and it made about $3. So there's an evaluation there, right? So in order to make real money, it would need to be maybe 300 million reactions, and that's not realistic. And I'm going to tell you why. There's about 6 billion people who utilize all these different social medias with different accounts, and it's all over the world. So most people don't select a general demographic. They select specific demographics. I allowed mine to always be open just to kind of gauge, because I'm an analytics person, and I like to have patience with it because I want to see what happens. Every day I can't check it. I need to check it over time. I need to see the time range. Understanding these things will kind of help you gauge. Now, you may not be interested in this at all. How does this impact patients? Well, a lot of times what I do is about content and then content reaction. So like, for example, every single podcast I do, I look for the feedback. I look for comments that ask questions, or I look for relatable stories that, you know what, I got to tell you guys about something I saw. Because understanding that is a learning and development for me and what I'm doing. Currently, what I'm working on is a finalized dissertation that's going to happen takes about 3 years, right? So I already know in 2024, I need to complete basically all my research for whatever I'm working on. However, at that point, that doesn't mean that I'm going to immediately be a doctor. At that point, I have to defend my research, make sure I analyze my criteria. And it's so funny because like for the past decade, I've been building towards this decree of information. Why is this important about being patient? Well, it takes a lot of patience to go through your self-awareness, your journey, your feedback, and just self-discovery. You know, there's so much I've learned in the last month that I didn't even realize. And this also attributes to who you are. Now, you ever been to a supermarket and the line is ridiculous? What are you doing on the line? And this is kind of a question I'm going to throw out there. So here's an idea, okay? So you're on the line. Sometimes you grab a magazine, right? Like a U.S. Weekly or a Globe or a People. What's going on with the Queen nowadays? Or what happened the other day with the president? You're looking through all these things. That takes up your time. And that's set up there specifically because lines form, right, at the supermarket. So that's there to kind of draw your attention and get lost in content. 9 out of 10 people won't buy those magazines. And that's, just it's available everywhere. Some people will, but some people won't. They'll look through it. Or maybe you'll need, you know what, I need gum. So let me grab these last things here. For the people that buy these things, what's great for the store is they get a UPT, right? Unit per transaction increase. So their UPTs go up just by you waiting online. So there's a reason why lines happen. There's sometimes a shortage, right? There's no cashier. All you have is the self-checkout. Those things happen too. But those are also uniquely set up in a business development plan to create a line or to create a moment where you can buy more things and not realize it. It's like when I say I go to Target for one item, I come out with a shopping cart. Or I go to BJ's with a $100 budget, I spend $500. It's set up that way. So you have to have the mindset of when I go there, this, that, and the third. Now, some of us are very strong in our I'm not budging after this amount of money, or I'm only buying this. Some of us are very strong. I always find myself, okay, I need to get cheese, milk, and eggs. I come out, cheese, milk, eggs, dog food, coloring books, pencils, Pokemon cards. And you can't stop that from happening. It does, unless you're really strong and sets your limit or your budget, that's on you. For me personally, it's always, what else do I need at the last minute? But what I love to do in the supermarket is I am online. And sometimes I will look at, if I'm with someone, I have a conversation, catch up. But I always like to plan out, and this is just me, what my next steps are. So I always say, okay, after I go to this register, I'm going to pack up my stuff. And here's the other thing. And I may be like, sometimes they say OCD about how I do my groceries. I always put my groceries a certain way, or it doesn't matter where I go. It could be groceries, supermarket, clothing store. I always do it a certain way so that when I pack it, it's a certain way. So when I go home and unpack it, it's a certain way so then I could go put it away. So I'm sitting there like, all right, I'm going to put the eggs and the dairy together. I'm going to move the milk first. I do this, why? Because my brain is like this. I have things that are jumbled and I want to work them out. I'm a problem solver. I've always been, and I like to problem solve anything. And there may not even be a problem. Sometimes what I like to do is even rationalize solutions for problems. So if I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know what? If I had 5, it would be 2 and 2. Something about that is something that relieves stress. And when I was younger, I used to do blueprints, right? I would draw blueprints, amazing, elaborate blueprints, and I would show my family, like, oh, look at this blueprint. It's an imaginary house somewhere. But being able to take the time and study how to create that was really something that spoke to me. I would even buy blueprint magazine. Everybody who knew me would give me like a blueprint magazine. Hey, look at these blueprint houses. Let me see. And it was more about like a fantasy, but also a stress reliever. Something about that dynamic. But I helped it. I loved it because it helped me with my patients. And because, I can go anywhere, any place, and just sit and wait and wait. 5 more minutes. We're backed up. We had a call out, and just wait and just get through the time. And by the time I see the next step, I'm refreshed. Now, I'm going to tell you what is key. Okay. So the other day I had to take an exam, and it's a big exam, okay? This exam is not the easiest exam, and it's based on a wealth of knowledge. So it's not like a specific formula that you can study. It's based on a series of information that you would have learned over time. And it's the business education test. The business education test for the Florida Department of State for grades 6 to 12 is based on business education. It talks about economy, accounting, situational, patterns. It also speaks about literacy, financial literacy, business planning, school actions, assessments. There's so many different concepts in this test that you really have to have this. There's no way you can truly study without having the content in either a bachelorette or master's program of understanding this information. And I say that because many people fail this test. So I took the test, I studied any content, I read through certain journals, I refreshed myself on common business phrases. And, my passion is business administration. So I said, let me see what I can get. Let me figure this out. And I do consider myself a subject matter expert on business administration and business education or, financial literacy, things of these natures that I speak about. And so I go, and now I'm in the parking lot, and I'm like, goodness gracious, I have an hour. What am I going to do? I'm like, well, should I study? I'm like, what I'm going to do? I'm going to watch comedy. So I put comedy on my podcast or my Spotify, wherever it was available. And I think it was Amazon. And I'm just listening to, and I'm laughing so hard. I can't say I'm cracking up. And I'm having so much fun laughing at what I'm listening to. I find myself like, oh my God, I gotta use the bathroom. It's so funny. And I say, oh, what time is it? Okay, I got 10 minutes left. Let me hang this up, shut it down. You can't bring your phone or any electronics with you. So I locked everything in the car and I went inside. But guess what I did there? When you do sports or you work out, you create endorphins. When you laugh or you feel self-enjoyment, it's endorphins. So by creating an endorphin, you don't block your receptors. When you're stressed out and angry, you're blocking your receptors. You can't clearly hear. Your eyes narrow. You don't want to understand things. Your brain is so busy dealing with stress because you're stressed in your brain. Now your back is stressed. Your arms are stressed. Now you have a leg. Your body's so focused with helping you unravel. Sometimes that's not the great opportunity to drive, to have a conversation, to do anything that involves in-depth thinking or critical thinking and assessment. That's not the best time. But if you are feeling great, life's amazing, you're in bliss, even if you make yourself feel that way temporarily just by listening to comedy, you open your receptors. Now you're open to new experiences. You're open-minded. Your body's relaxed. So I walk in, I do my Father, Son, Holy Mary of the cross. I protect myself, right? I always do that. And I go take my test, and guess what? I pass it. And not only did I pass it, there was 2 questions that I was like, not quite sure. You know what? Give or take. It could be either or. It could be either or at this point. And I just kind of, no worries. It's okay. I could lose 2. I go to the front, and the lady there was absolutely lovely. And I said, I think I messed up, but whatever it is, I'm fine. She gives me the paper, and what does it say? It says pass. And I was like, yes, I passed. All right. But the thing is, I already felt like I passed it. I walked away, I felt, I'm pretty confident. I hate to say don't be confident because then you'll trip. But I felt great. And then I get in my car and I call my family. I'm like, guess what? I passed. And I'm super duper excited and happy. And I put on good music and I go home. We meet up because we got to do other things. But you see, I controlled my outcome by not stressing, not giving myself the opportunity to block my receptors. I gave myself a new opportunity to open up and expand my mind. Even when you think that everything is going to fail, oh, it's not going to work out, or I have these things to do, don't think that way. When you manifest those negative things or negative possibilities, you manifest, it happens. And, you could call me crazy. You could say, Fanny, you're a quack. It's not true. I'm telling you, when you speak positive affirmations about yourself to yourself, and you actually mean it, like when you write it down and you read it out loud and you say, yeah, I'm amazing, but you mean it, okay? And you manifest positive in your life. I'm going to take that test. I'm going to pass that test. these things create positive influences that you let out into the universe, and now they're coming back to you. And that's kind of hard to think. It's not science, right? I can't show this to you in a science or one of my analytical researches, or maybe I can. Maybe I could somehow, my next paper, my next thing that I work in, the next 10 years, that will be what I will explain about, does manifestation work? But I believe it does. And because I believe it, it's so. Because that's what I say. You believe it and it occurs, right? So with that, by having a level of understanding and management over your actions and time, you develop a very strong meditation on your patience. And if you understand this, then I explain that anything that gets you frustrated, like if you ever boil water and just sit there and watch it, like, my gosh, this water is taking forever. Well, let's say you walked away. It may have taken 5 to 7 minutes. By you standing there watching that water boil, it's going to take an hour in your brain. And it's not necessarily the actual time. It's your mental time of concentration. Once you distract yourself from the environment or the situation, it's like, oh, it's already boiled. Oh my goodness, the water's boiling over. You lose track of time. So it's understanding how to control your meditation of your patience. And that's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. You got to fine tune it. It's like knowing when to jump in the shower and not get hit with cold water. Like you turn the water on, you want to jump in. Now you got to give yourself a second, right? Got the water warm up. I always laugh about that. I'm like, okay, put the water on. Let me then go do what I got to do. Instead of doing what I got to do and put the water on. It's like thinking of another layer of multitasking. How can I multitask, you know? I always kind of feel that when I make coffee. Like, I'm going to make coffee while that water's dripping. While the water's dripping in there, I'm going to put the sweetener, right? It's like multitasking to get that 30 seconds back on life. Because once you spend the time, it's gone. Think about that. So you don't want to race through life, but you want to be present in your moments. And this takes patience. This does take patience. Now, I appreciate you taking this time from me. You know, we've been sitting here talking. And, well, maybe I'm doing all the talking. Well, thank you for having patience and listening to my podcast. And more than that, thank you so much for joining me on this journey of Fannytastic Life. Let me know how you take care of your patients or what you do to be more patient. Bye now.